In a small, quiet village surrounded by golden fields of wheat and rolling hills, there lived a man named Aaron. He wasn't rich or famous. In fact, most people in the village barely noticed him unless they needed their bicycles fixed. Aaron was a mechanic, a very good one, but he didn't charge money for his work. Every day, under the shade of an old banyan tree, he would sit on a wooden bench with tools scattered around him. His hands were always dirty from grease, but his smile was warm and welcoming. Aaron's workshop wasn't fancy. It was just a patch of land near the edge of the village where he had set up his tools and spare parts. Most of those parts came from broken-down bikes that villagers had abandoned long ago. Aaron would take them apart, clean them up, and use whatever he could salvage to repair other bicycles. To him, nothing went to waste. If something can still be useful, he'd say, why throw it away? The villagers depended on Aaron more than they realized. For farmers who relied on bicycles to carry goods to the market, for children who needed to get to school, and even for travelers passing through the village, Arun's services were invaluable. Yet no matter how much they offered to pay him, he refused. I don't do this for money, he'd tell them. I do it because I want to help. Some people thought Arun was foolish. After all, everyone else charged for their skills. Why should he be any different? But others admired him deeply. They saw kindness in his actions, a rare quality in a world often driven by greed. Even so, no one truly understood why Arun chose this life of selflessness. Not even his closest friends knew the real reason behind his generosity. What they didn't know was that Aaron had another passion, one that kept him awake at night and filled his mind with wonder. When the sun dipped below the horizon and the stars began to twinkle in the sky, Aaron would climb onto the roof of his tiny home. There, he would spend hours gazing through an old telescope he had found in a junkyard years ago. The telescope was battered and scratched, its lens slightly cracked, but it worked well enough for Aaron to explore the heavens above. Every night, as the rest of the village slept, Aaron studied the stars. He traced constellations, learned about distant galaxies, and dreamed of planets far beyond Earth. Sometimes he imagined himself traveling among the stars, meeting strange beings, and discovering worlds unlike anything he had ever known. These dreams gave him a sense of purpose, a feeling that maybe, just maybe, he was meant for something greater than fixing bicycles. One evening, while adjusting the focus on his telescope, Arun noticed something unusual. A faint glimmer moved slowly across the sky. At first he thought it might be a satellite or a shooting star, but this light behaved differently. It didn't streak across the sky like a meteor. Instead, it hovered and then disappeared behind a cloud. Intrigued, Aaron grabbed a notebook and jotted down its position. Over the next few nights he kept watching. Each time the object grew brighter and larger, almost as if it were getting closer to Earth. By the fourth night, Aaron couldn't ignore what he was seeing anymore. Whatever it wasn't natural. It wasn't a planet, a comet, or anything else he had read about in books. This was something entirely new and possibly dangerous. Word of strange lights in the sky soon spread beyond the village. News channels reported sightings over major cities worldwide. People talked about glowing orbs hovering silently above buildings, moving in patterns too precise to be random. Some claimed the lights were UFOs, proof that aliens existed. Others dismissed it as a hoax or a trick of the eye. But deep down, everyone felt uneasy. Something big was happening, and no one knew what it meant. It wasn't long before the military arrived in Aaron's village. Trucks rumbled down the narrow dirt roads, kicking up clouds of dust as soldiers unloaded equipment and set up tents near Aaron's workshop. Curious villagers gathered to watch, whispering nervously about alien invasions and government secrets. Arun stayed silent, observing everything from a distance. He wanted to ask questions but hesitated. What could he, a simple bike mechanic, possibly contribute? Still, curiosity got the better of him. One afternoon he approached a young officer standing guard near the camp. "What's going on?" Aaron asked casually, trying not to sound too eager. The soldier glanced at him, then sighed. We're monitoring unidentified objects in orbit, he said reluctantly. They've been emitting signals we can't decipher. Arun's heart skipped a beat. Could these objects be connected to what he had seen through his telescope? That night, unable to shake off the feeling that he was onto something important, Arun decided to investigate further. Using scraps from his workshop, he built a crude radio receiver capable of picking up frequencies beyond commercial bands. It took hours of tinkering, but eventually he succeeded. To his astonishment, the device picked up a series of rhythmic pulses, clearly artificial in origin. The signals repeated themselves in a pattern almost like a language. Excitement bubbled inside Arun. He recorded the pulses and listened to them repeatedly, trying to make sense of what he was hearing. Whatever it wasn't human. For days. Arun wrestled with whether he should share his discovery with the military. On one hand, he feared they wouldn't take him seriously. Who would listen to a bike mechanic talking about alien signals? On the other hand, he knew he couldn't keep the secret to himself. If the signals posed a threat to Earth, humanity needed to know. Finally, gathering his courage, Arun returned to the military camp. This time, he carried his homemade receiver and played back the recorded pulses for the officers. At first, they seemed skeptical, exchanging wary glances. But as they listened more closely, their expressions changed. They realized Arun had stumbled upon something extraordinary. "Where did you get this?" one of the officers asked sharply. "I built it," Arun replied simply, holding up the makeshift device. The officers conferred quietly before turning back to him. "You've done good work," one of them admitted. "We'll look into this further." Though they didn't say much else, Arun could see the wheels turning in their minds. Whatever was out there, it was serious, and Arun had unknowingly become part of the investigation. Little did he know, this was only the beginning of a journey that would change not only his life but the fate of the entire planet. As he walked back to his workshop under the banyan tree, Arun looked up at the sky once more. The stars seemed brighter tonight, almost as if they were watching him. For the first time in his life, he felt a spark of destiny, a feeling that he was meant to play a role in something far bigger than himself. The days that followed Arun's encounter with the military were strange and unsettling. The village, once peaceful and predictable, now buzzed with tension. Soldiers patrolled the streets, their boots crunching against the gravel as they carried equipment back and forth. Tents had been erected near Arun's workshop, and large antennas pointed skyward like mechanical fingers trying to touch the stars. Villagers whispered nervously about what was happening. Some believed aliens were coming to invade Earth, while others thought the military was hiding something sinister. No one knew for sure, but everyone agreed on one thing: life in the village would never be the same again. Arun tried to focus on his work, fixing bicycles as usual, but his mind kept drifting back to the strange signals he had recorded. What did they mean? Who or what was sending them? And why had the military taken such an interest in his discovery? These questions gnawed at him, keeping him awake at night. He spent hours staring at the stars through his old telescope, hoping to catch another glimpse of the mysterious object he had seen. But the skies remained eerily quiet, as if holding their breath. One morning, as Arun tightened the bolts on a rusty bike frame, a soldier approached him. It was the same young officer he had spoken to before. "We've reviewed your recordings," the officer said without preamble. "You might have uncovered something significant." Arun wiped his greasy hands on a rag and looked up, surprised. "What do you mean?" The officer hesitated, glancing around to ensure no one else was listening. "The signals you detected, they match patterns we've picked up from the objects in orbit. We think there's some kind of communication." Arun's heart raced. "Communication from who?" "That's what we're trying to figure out," the officer admitted. "But here's the thing, we need your help." For a moment, Arun couldn't believe what he was hearing. Him? Help the military? What could a bike mechanic possibly offer? Before he could protest, the officer continued. "Your receiver is impressive. Crude, yes, but effective. You managed to detect frequencies our equipment missed. That makes you valuable." Valuable. The word echoed in Aaron's mind. No one had ever called him that before. Not because he fixed bikes for free, not because he gazed at the stars every night, but because of something he had created with his own two hands. For the first time, he felt a flicker of pride. Reluctantly, Aaron agreed to assist the military. They set him up in a small tent filled with computers, monitors, and advanced equipment he didn't understand. Scientists and engineers bustled around him, speaking in technical jargon that went over his head. At first, he felt out of place, like a fish swimming in unfamiliar waters. But as the hours passed, he began to find his rhythm. His practical knowledge of machines and his knack for problem-solving proved invaluable. When a piece of equipment malfunctioned, Aaron was the one who figured out how to fix it. When data needed organizing, he devised simple systems that made everyone's job easier. Slowly but surely, he earned the respect of those around him. Despite the camaraderie, the mood remained tense. Every day brought new reports of strange phenomena occurring worldwide. Power grids flickered unpredictably. Satellites went offline, without warning. Strange lights danced across the skies, leaving witnesses awestruck and terrified. Governments scrambled to prepare for the worst, but no one knew what to expect. Were the objects in orbit friendly or hostile? Was humanity facing an invasion, or was this something entirely different? Then came the breakthrough. Late one night, as Arun tinkered with his receiver, he noticed something unusual. The rhythmic pulses he had recorded earlier were changing. Instead of repeating in a steady pattern, they now varied slightly, almost like a conversation. Excited, he adjusted the frequency and listened more closely. The signal seemed to carry layers of information, each layer building upon the last. It was complex, but not impossible to decipher. Working tirelessly, Aaron collaborated with the scientists to analyze the data. Together they identified fragments of what appeared to be a message. It wasn't written in any human language. Instead, it consisted of mathematical patterns and symbols. Piece by piece, they began decoding it. What they discovered sent shockwaves through the team. The message wasn't a greeting or a declaration of peace, it was a warning. The objects in orbit weren't invaders. They were refugees fleeing from something far worse. Their planet had been destroyed by a colossal fleet of starships belonging to an unknown enemy. These ships were now heading toward Earth. The news spread quickly, plunging the team into a state of panic. If the enemy fleet was as powerful as the message suggested, humanity stood little chance of survival. Weapons designed to combat earthly threats would be useless against such advanced technology. Desperation filled the air as governments debated their next move. Some proposed launching nuclear missiles in a desperate attempt to defend Earth. Others suggested surrendering before it was too late. Amidst the chaos, Arun found himself reflecting on his life. He had always felt insignificant, like a tiny cog in the vast machinery of the universe. But now he realized that even the smallest actions could have profound consequences. His decision to build a crude receiver had led to the discovery of a message that might save or doom the entire planet. Determined to make a difference, Arun refused to give in to despair. While others succumbed to fear, he focused on finding solutions. Drawing inspiration from his years of repairing bicycles, he reminded himself that every problem had a solution if you looked at it from the right angle. One evening, as he stared at the decoded fragments of the alien message, an idea began to form in his mind. What if humanity didn't have to fight the enemy directly? What if they could use the aliens' fear against them? The thought excited and terrified him at the same time. Could it work? Or was he grasping at straws? Either way, he knew he had to try. With renewed determination, Aaron sketched out a plan. Using the data collected from the alien signals, he proposed modifying Earth's satellites to emit a frequency mimicking the energy signature of the enemy fleet. If done correctly, it would create the illusion that Earth was already occupied by the same force that had annihilated the aliens' home planet. When Aaron presented his idea to the team, skepticism greeted him. Many dismissed it as too risky or impractical, but others saw potential in his unconventional approach. After much debate, the military reluctantly approved the plan. time was running out, and they had nothing to lose. Over the next few days, Aaron worked alongside engineers to implement his strategy. Back in his village, rumors swirled about his involvement with the military. Some hailed him as a hero. Others dismissed him as crazy. But Aaron didn't care. All that mattered was saving his planet, and perhaps earning redemption for years spent feeling insignificant. Finally, the day of reckoning arrived. As the alien fleet descended upon Earth, Aaron activated the modified satellites. Beams of light shot into the sky, creating a dazzling display visible across continents. For a moment, the world held its breath, and then silence. The alien fleet froze mid-approach, their sensors detecting the simulated presence of the dreaded enemy. Confusion turned into terror as they retreated, disappearing into the depths of space as quickly as they had come. Cheers erupted worldwide, and celebrations broke out in every corner of the globe. Back in his village, Aaron returned to his quiet life under the banyan tree. Reporters flocked to interview him, but he politely declined, saying, "I'm just a mechanic, I did what anyone would have done." Yet his actions spoke louder than words. He had proven that even the most ordinary person could achieve greatness, when driven by compassion and determination. As he gazed at the stars once more, Aaron allowed himself a small smile. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew one thing for certain. Sometimes, heroes aren't born. They're made, one small act of kindness at a time. The days following the decoding of the alien message were a blur of activity. The military base near Arun's village transformed into a hive of urgency and determination. Scientists, engineers, and strategists worked around the clock, their faces etched with worry as they debated humanity's next move. Meanwhile, governments worldwide convened emergency meetings, scrambling to prepare for the worst. Rumors of an impending alien invasion spread like wildfire, causing panic in cities and towns across the globe. People stockpiled food and water, while others prayed or simply waited in fear. Amidst this chaos, Aaron found himself thrust into a role he had never imagined. From fixing bicycles under a banyan tree to collaborating with top scientists and military officials, his life had taken a turn so dramatic it felt surreal. Yet despite the pressure, Arun remained calm. His years of solving mechanical problems had taught him one valuable lesson: focus on what you can control and let everything else fall into place. Every morning, Aaron reported to the tent where the team was stationed. He sat alongside experts who spoke languages of physics, mathematics, and engineering, languages he barely understood. But instead of feeling intimidated, Aaron leaned into his strengths. While others theorized and calculated, he tinkered. When equipment malfunctioned, he fixed it. When data became overwhelming, he organized it. Slowly but surely, he carved out a niche for himself, earning the trust of even the most skeptical members of the team. One day, as the group reviewed the decoded fragments of the alien warning, an argument broke out. Some believed the message was credible and urged immediate action. Others dismissed it as speculative, arguing that the aliens might be lying to manipulate Earth into submission. Tensions ran high and voices grew louder. Aaron listened quietly, his mind racing. Finally, he spoke up. "What if we don't fight them directly?" he suggested. The room fell silent. Everyone turned to look at him, surprised that the quiet bike mechanic had dared to interrupt. "What do you mean?" asked Dr. Mehta, the lead scientist, raising an eyebrow. Aaron hesitated, then continued. "The aliens are scared. They're running from something far worse than us. What if we use their fear against them?" The idea hung in the air like a fragile thread. For a moment, no one said anything. Then, slowly, murmurs of curiosity began to ripple through the room. "Explain," Dr. Mehta said, leaning forward. Taking a deep breath, Aaron explained his plan. Using the data collected from the alien signals, they could modify Earth satellites to emit a frequency mimicking the energy signature of the enemy fleet, the same fleet that had destroyed the aliens' home planet. If done correctly, it would create the illusion that Earth was already occupied by the dreaded enemy. It's risky, Aaron admitted. But if it works, the aliens might retreat before attacking. The room erupted into debate. Some praised the idea as ingenious while others dismissed it as too dangerous. After hours of discussion, the military reluctantly approved the plan. Time was running out, and they had no better options. With the decision made, Arun threw himself into the project. Working alongside engineers, he helped design modifications for the satellites. His practical knowledge of machines proved invaluable, allowing him to simplify complex systems and streamline processes. When challenges arose, he approached them with the same creativity and resourcefulness he used to fix broken bicycles. Back in his village, rumors swirled about Aaron's involvement with the military. Villagers whispered about secret experiments and alien invasions, their imaginations fueled by snippets of overheard conversations. Children stared at him in awe, convinced he was some kind of superhero. Adults, however, were divided. Some admired his courage, while others thought he had bitten off more than he could chew. Despite the attention, Aaron stayed focused. He spent long hours at the base, often skipping meals and sleep to ensure the project stayed on track. At night, when everyone else had gone home, he would sit alone in the tent, staring at the stars through a small opening in the canvas. The vastness of the universe filled him with both wonder and humility. How strange it was, he thought, that someone like him, a simple mechanic from a tiny village, was now playing a role in humanity's survival. As the days passed, progress on the satellite modifications accelerated. Teams worked tirelessly to install new transmitters and calibrate frequencies. Every step brought them closer to implementation, but also closer to the unknown. What if the plan failed? What if the aliens saw through the deception? These questions haunted Aaron, but he refused to let fear paralyze him. Finally, the preparations were complete. The modified satellites were ready to broadcast the simulated signal. The military scheduled the activation for dawn, giving them enough time to monitor its effects before the alien fleet reached Earth's atmosphere. On the eve of the operation, Aaron returned to his workshop under the banyan tree. He needed a moment of solitude to clear his mind. Sitting on the wooden bench, he gazed at the tools scattered around him, the wrenches, screwdrivers, and spare parts that had been his companions for so many years. Each item carried memories of countless repairs, each repair a story of helping someone in need. For the first time, Aaron realized how much his work had shaped him. Fixing bicycles wasn't just about mending machines. It was about connecting with people, understanding their struggles, and finding solutions. That same spirit of service had guided him through this extraordinary journey. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Aaron allowed himself a moment of reflection. Tomorrow, the fate of the world would hang in the balance. Success or failure, he knew he had given everything he could. When darkness fell, he climbed onto the roof of his house to gaze at the stars once more. Through his old telescope, he searched for signs of the alien fleet. Though he couldn't see them, he knew they were out there, hurtling toward Earth with terrifying speed. Closing his eyes, Arun whispered a silent prayer, not for victory, but for peace. Whatever happened, he hoped humanity would emerge stronger and wiser. And maybe, just maybe, he hoped the universe would remember the efforts of a humble mechanic who had dared to dream big. The next morning, as the first rays of sunlight pierced the horizon, Arun joined the team at the base. Everyone gathered around the control panel, their faces tense with anticipation. Engineers double-checked the settings while soldiers stood ready to respond to any threat. At exactly 6 Gauss a.m., Aaron pressed the button to activate the satellites. A low hum filled the air as beams of light shot into the sky, creating a dazzling display visible across continents. For a moment, the world held its breath. Then came the wait. Seconds stretched into minutes as the team monitored the alien fleet's response. On the radar screens, the ships appeared frozen mid-approach, their movements erratic. Confusion rippled through their ranks as their sensors detected the simulated presence of the dreaded enemy. And then, it happened. One by one, the ships began retreating, turning away from Earth and disappearing into the depths of space. Cheers erupted in the control room, followed by tears of relief and joy. Humanity had been spared, at least for now. As the celebrations unfolded, Aaron stepped outside, away from the noise. Standing beneath the banyan tree, he looked up at the sky. The stars twinkled innocently, oblivious to the drama that had just unfolded. In that moment, Arun felt a profound sense of gratitude, not for himself, but for the countless individuals who had contributed to this victory. He was just a mechanic, after all, but sometimes, even the smallest actions could change the course of history. The news of Earth's miraculous escape spread like wildfire. Within hours, every corner of the globe erupted in celebration. People poured into streets and squares, waving flags and lighting fireworks. Strangers hugged each other, tears streaming down their faces as they realized they had been given a second chance at life. Social media buzzed with videos of families reuniting, children laughing, and elderly couples holding hands in relief. For the first time in days, the world felt united, not by fear, but by hope. Back in Aaron's village, the atmosphere was no different. Villagers gathered under the banyan tree where Aaron usually worked, singing songs and sharing stories late into the night. Someone brought out a drum, another a harmonium, and soon the air was filled with music and laughter. Children danced around Aaron, chanting his name like a hero from an ancient tale. But despite the adoration, Aaron kept to himself, standing quietly on the sidelines. His mind was elsewhere, replaying the events of the past few days over and over again. For all the joy surrounding him, Aaron couldn't shake off the feeling that this victory was temporary. The alien fleet had retreated, yes, but what about the enemy they were fleeing? What if those ships decided to follow them to Earth? Or worse, what if they already knew about humanity's deception? These questions weighed heavily on his shoulders, casting a shadow over the celebrations. The military shared his concerns. While the immediate threat had passed, they knew Earth wasn't safe yet. Leaders from around the world convened for an emergency summit, discussing how to prepare for future encounters. Scientists proposed building advanced defense systems, while engineers suggested launching reconnaissance missions into space. Governments pledged billions of dollars to fund research and development, vowing to never let humanity be caught off guard again. But amidst all these plans, one thing became clear. Earth needed unity more than ever. Divided nations couldn't stand against a common foe. Only through collaboration could humanity survive. Slowly, barriers began to break down. Rival countries signed peace treaties, pooling resources and sharing technology. Space agencies, once fiercely competitive, joined forces to create a global coalition dedicated to protecting the planet. It was a new era, one born out of necessity but fueled by hope. As the world adapted to this changing reality, Arun returned to his quiet life under the banyan tree. Reporters flocked to interview him, eager to learn more about the man who had saved humanity. Some even called him a genius, comparing him to legendary inventors and strategists throughout history. But Aaron refused to entertain them. "I'm just a mechanic," he'd say with a shrug. "I did what anyone would have done." Yet deep down he knew that wasn't entirely true. His unconventional thinking, his ability to see solutions where others saw problems, that was what had made the difference. And though he didn't seek recognition, he couldn't deny the impact his actions had made. In the weeks that followed, life in the village slowly returned to normal, or as close to normal as it could get after such an extraordinary event. Farmers resumed tending to their fields, children went back to school, and travelers continued passing through. But something had changed. People looked at Aaron differently now. Where before they had seen a humble bike mechanic, they now saw a hero, symbol of resilience and ingenuity. One day, as Arun tightened the brakes on a rusty bicycle, a young boy approached him. He couldn't have been older than 10, his eyes wide with admiration. "Are you really the one who scared away the aliens?" the boy asked breathlessly. Aaron chuckled, wiping his greasy hands on a rag. "Not exactly," he replied. "I just helped figure out how to trick them. The boy frowned, clearly disappointed. But isn't that the same thing? Aaron paused, considering the question. Was it? In a way, yes. Without his idea, the plan might never have worked. But he also knew he hadn't acted alone. Hundreds of people, scientists, engineers, soldiers, and ordinary citizens, had played a part in saving Earth. Success belonged to everyone, not just him. No, Aaron said finally, smiling at the boy. It's not the same thing. Heroes aren't just one person. They're everyone who tries to make things better. The boy nodded thoughtfully, then ran off to join his friends. Watching him go, Aaron felt a pang of nostalgia. How many times had he dreamed of being someone important when he was younger? Someone whose actions mattered, whose life left a mark on the world. Now here he was, living proof that dreams could come true, even in ways you least expected. The sun set that evening. Aaron climbed onto the roof of his house to gaze at the stars once more. Through his old telescope, he searched the heavens, wondering if the aliens had found safety elsewhere. Had they reached a new home? Or were they still wandering aimlessly through the void? And what about the enemy fleet? The force so terrifying. It had driven entire civilizations to flee. Would humanity ever encounter them? These thoughts troubled Aaron, but they also inspired him. If Earth could face such a monumental challenge and emerge victorious, perhaps there was nothing it couldn't overcome. The key, he realized, lay in perspective. Fear blinded people, making them focus on what they lacked rather than what they had. But courage opened doors, revealing possibilities hidden beneath layers of doubt. Over the next few months, Arun noticed subtle changes in the village and in himself. Once isolated and overlooked, he now found himself surrounded by friends and admirers. Villagers stopped by daily, not just to fix their bikes but to chat or share meals. Children brought him drawings of spaceships and aliens, their imaginations sparked by recent events. Even strangers passing through the village sought him out, hoping to catch a glimpse of the man who had saved the world. At first, the attention overwhelmed Aaron. He wasn't used to being the center of attention, nor did he crave it. But as time went on, he began to appreciate the connections he was forming. Each conversation, each smile, reminded him of why he had started fixing bikes for free in the first place. To help others, to make a difference, however small. Inspired by the newfound sense of community, Arun decided to expand his workshop. With donations from grateful villagers, he built a proper shed equipped with tools and spare parts. He also started offering free classes to teach children basic mechanics. If I can pass on even a little of what I know, he told them, then maybe someday, one of you will save the world too. The classes quickly became popular, drawing kids from neighboring villages as well. Parents marveled at how engaged their children were, learning skills that could serve them for life. For Aaron, teaching was a reminder of his own journey. From a curious boy tinkering with broken machines to a man who had helped protect an entire planet. Meanwhile, the global coalition continued its efforts to safeguard Earth. Satellites monitored the skies for any signs of returning threats, while scientists worked tirelessly to develop new technologies. Breakthroughs came steadily: faster spacecraft, stronger materials, and communication systems capable of reaching distant stars. Humanity was preparing for whatever lay ahead, determined to never be caught unprepared again. Despite these advancements, Aaron remained grounded. He believed that true strength came not from weapons or gadgets but from the bonds people shared. Every repaired bicycle, every child taught, every act of kindness, it all contributed to a stronger, more resilient world. One evening, as Aaron sat under the banyan tree watching the sunset, a familiar voice interrupted his thoughts. "You've changed, you know," said Dr. Mehta, the lead scientist who had worked with him during the crisis. She had traveled from the city to visit the village, bringing updates on the coalition's progress. Aaron glanced up, surprised. "Changed? How?" Dr. Mehta smiled. "You carry yourself differently now, like someone who knows their worth." Aaron laughed softly, shaking his head. "I'm still the same person I was before, Maybe, she said, sitting beside him. But the world sees you differently, and so do you, whether you admit it or not. Her words lingered in Aaron's mind long after she left. Had he changed? Perhaps. But if so, it wasn't because of fame or recognition. It was because he had discovered something far more valuable: purpose. That night, as he gazed at the stars through his telescope, Aaron felt a profound sense of peace. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew humanity would face them together. And though he might never travel among the stars or meet beings from other worlds, he took comfort in knowing that his small acts of kindness had helped keep Earth safe. After all, heroes weren't defined by grand gestures or epic battles. They were defined by the love and care they showed for others, and by the belief that even the smallest actions could change the course of history. And so, under the watchful eyes of the stars, Aaron returned to his work, ready to face whatever tomorrow might bring. Months passed since the alien fleet had retreated, and life on Earth began to settle into a new rhythm. The initial euphoria of victory gave way to a quieter, more reflective phase. People returned to their routines, but the memory of those tense days lingered like a shadow in the back of everyone's mind. Across the globe, communities came together with renewed purpose. Neighbors who had once been strangers now shared meals and stories. Schools incorporated lessons about unity and resilience into their curriculums. Governments invested heavily in science and technology, determined to ensure humanity would never again be caught unprepared. In Arun's village, the changes were subtle yet profound. The banyan tree, once just a quiet spot for bike repairs, became a gathering place for villagers. Elders sat beneath its sprawling branches, sharing wisdom with younger generations. Children played nearby, their laughter echoing through the air. Even travelers passing through stopped to marvel at the sense of community that had blossomed there. And at the heart of it all was Arun, a man whose humility and kindness had inspired so many. Every morning, Arun woke before sunrise, just as he always had. He brewed a cup of tea, climbed onto his roof, and gazed at the stars through his old telescope. Though the immediate threat had passed, he couldn't shake the feeling that the universe still held secrets, some beautiful, others dangerous. Each night sky reminded him of how vast and unpredictable the cosmos truly was. Yet, instead of fear, he felt curiosity. What else was out there? What mysteries awaited discovery? These questions fueled his imagination, driving him to learn more about space and science. During the day, Arun focused on teaching. His mechanic classes grew in popularity, attracting not only children but also adults eager to learn practical skills. He taught them how to fix bicycles, yes, but also how to think creatively and solve problems. A broken bike isn't just a machine, he'd say. It's a puzzle waiting to be solved. Every challenge is an opportunity to grow. His students adored him, not just because of what he taught, but because of how he made them feel. To them, Arun wasn't just a teacher. He was a role model, a living example of how ordinary people could achieve extraordinary things. One afternoon, as Arun worked with a group of children repairing a particularly stubborn bicycle chain, a visitor arrived. It was a journalist from a national newspaper, sent to write a feature story about the hero of the banyan tree. At first, Arun tried to send her away, insisting he didn't want any attention. But the journalist persisted, explaining that his story could inspire others. Reluctantly, Arun agreed to an interview. Sitting under the banyan tree, he spoke candidly about his journey, from fixing bikes for free to collaborating with scientists and engineers to save the planet. He emphasized that his actions hadn't been heroic. They had simply been what anyone would have done in his position. "I'm no different than you or anyone else," he told her. "If I can make a difference, so can you." The article was published a week later, and it resonated deeply with readers. Letters poured in from across the country, thanking Arun for reminding them of the power of compassion and determination. Some wrote about personal struggles they had overcome after reading his story. Others vowed to start volunteering or helping their communities in small ways. Aaron was overwhelmed by the response, but not surprised. He had always believed that kindness was contagious. As the months turned into years, Earth entered a new era of progress and unity. The global coalition established during the crisis continued to thrive, achieving remarkable milestones. Scientists developed renewable energy sources capable of powering entire cities. Engineers constructed advanced spacecraft designed to explore distant planets. Communication systems improved dramatically, allowing humans to connect instantly regardless of location. Humanity's collective effort transformed fear into innovation, adversity into opportunity. But perhaps the most significant change was cultural. People began to see themselves as part of something greater, not just citizens of individual nations, but members of a single, interconnected species. Flags waved proudly alongside symbols representing Earth as a whole. Festivals celebrating unity replaced divisive traditions. Art, music, and literature flourished, reflecting themes of hope, cooperation, and exploration. Through it all, Aaron remained a steadfast figure of inspiration. Though he avoided the spotlight, his influence spread far beyond his village. Schools named libraries after him. Nonprofits adopted his philosophy of service and education. Even astronauts carried photos of the banyan tree into space, honoring the humble mechanic who had helped save the planet. Despite the accolades, Aaron stayed true to himself. He continued fixing bikes for free, teaching classes, and gazing at the stars. Occasionally, he wondered if the aliens he had tricked ever discovered the truth. Did they resent humanity for deceiving them? Or did they understand that survival sometimes required desperate measures? These thoughts troubled him, but he consoled himself with the belief that compassion transcended species and language. If, given the chance, he hoped to meet them one day, not as adversaries but as equals. One evening, as Arun sat under the banyan tree watching the sunset, a young girl approached him. She couldn't have been older than 7, clutching a battered toy spaceship in her hands. Her eyes sparkled with excitement. "Did you really scare away the aliens?" she asked eagerly. Aaron smiled, setting aside the wrench he had been using. "Not exactly," he replied. "We tricked them into thinking Earth was already occupied by something scarier." The girl frowned, clearly confused. "So, you lied?" Aaron chuckled. "You could say that. Sometimes telling the truth isn't enough. You have to use your imagination to find solutions." The girl tilted her head, considering this. "Does that mean lying is okay?" Aaron thought for a moment before answering. "Lying isn't good, but protecting people you care about is important. Just remember, when you do something tricky, make sure it comes from a place of love, not harm." The girl nodded solemnly, then grinned. "Can I take your picture?" Caught off guard, Aaron hesitated. "Why?" "So I can show my friends that heroes are real." Aaron laughed, shaking his head. "I'm not a hero, little one. I'm just a mechanic." "But you're our mechanic," the girl insisted, "and we need pictures of our heroes." Unable to argue further, Aaron allowed her to snap a photo with her mother's phone. As she ran off to join her friends, he felt a warmth spread through his chest. Maybe the world needed heroes not because they were perfect, but because they reminded us of our potential. That night, as Aaron lay on his rooftop gazing at the stars, he reflected on everything that had happened. From a simple bike mechanic to a symbol of hope, his journey had been anything but ordinary. Yet at its core, it was rooted in the same principles that had guided him all along: kindness, curiosity, and a belief in the goodness of people. Far above, the stars twinkled innocently, oblivious to the drama they had witnessed. Somewhere out there, the alien fleet drifted onward, searching for refuge, and somewhere beyond them, the enemy fleet loomed, a reminder of the dangers lurking in the vast unknown. But here on Earth, humanity stood united, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Thanks to the efforts of countless individuals, including a humble mechanic named Arun, the planet had earned a second chance. Closing his eyes, Arun whispered a silent thank you to the universe for giving him the opportunity to serve, to dream, and to make a difference. and for reminding him that even the smallest actions could ripple outward, touching lives in ways he might never fully understand. When dawn broke the next morning, Aaron rose early, brewed his tea, and headed to the banyan tree. Today, like every other day, there were bikes to fix, lessons to teach, and stars to admire. Life went on, filled with both beauty and uncertainty. But for Aaron, and for humanity, it was enough. After all, heroes weren't born. They were made. One small act of kindness at a time.